After the M1 mic preamp came out in 1987, I made a trip to the West Coast and I went to see Dean Jensen, and I was very proud of my work, so I brought it over and showed my M1 mic preamp to him. And actually about 8 or 10 months before the M1 came out, Dean Jensen had introduced a product that was made by another company for him to his specifications, and that's where the bolder Jensen Twin Servo 990 mic preamp came out. So that was introduced in 1986. I showed Dean my M1 in 1987, and sometime in early 1988 or so, by that time there was a falling out between Dean Jensen and the Boulder company, and Dean decided to cancel that project, and he approached me then about seeing if I would be interested in building the Jensen Twin Servo 990 mic preamp, but using the M1 packaging as the basis for it. So we came to an agreement, and I started making the Jensen Twin Servo 990 mic preamp. It looks remarkably like an M1 mic preamp. There's been some confusion on it occasionally over the years, but that is an excellent mic preamp. The key difference between the M1 and the Jensen Twin Servo is that the Jensen Twin Servo uses 2 of the 990 op amps per channel, compared to the M1 that uses just one 990, and there are strengths and weaknesses to each approach. But what I have here in my hand is a specialized version of the Jensen Twin Servo. This was one that was actually developed expressly for Sony Classical at the time. They wanted to have a rotary switch gain control, and in this case we came up with a 22 position rotary switch. And the switch was so big that there wasn't room to fit it where the original gain control of the Jensen Twin Servo is. So you can see here that we have the channels in the 1 and 3 positions, but the actual 22 position switches in the 2 and 4 slot positions, because there just isn't room to do it as a 4-channel preamp. So it's a repackaged concept where it looks great from the front panel. I think the graphic layout just looks really good as a 2-channel mic preamp. But the normal 4-channel, anywhere from 1 to 4 channel Jensen Twin Servo would have 4 channels in it, and it would just have pots right about here. So very similar to the M1. Things are very similar, same input transformer. Once again, the best of the Jensen input transformers, the JT16B. Same output transformer, the JT11BMQ. 990 op amps, but of course 2 on the Jensen Twin Servo instead of 1. There are no coupling capacitors anywhere in the signal path, so you don't get the degradation of that. So they are all wonderful mic preamps with very similar sonic qualities. There will always be people who prefer one over the other, and I don't know if it's real or perceived differences. If you need extremely high gain, the 2-stage design might give you a little bit better edge, although the M1 does a fine job at high gain applications as well. But you can only push an op amp so far before, if the gain gets higher and higher and higher, when you need really high gain. The argument here is better to split the gain up between 2 op amps, having each op amp provide half as much gain, compared to a single op amp having to provide all the gain. So for example, just to throw some numbers out, if you needed 60 dB of gain, you're getting your first 5.7 dB of gain from the input transformer. The remaining 54.3 dB of gain will be provided by 2 990s at 27.15 dB each, something like that, versus one 990 in an M1 where the single 990 would have to provide 54.3 dB of gain. So perhaps it's better to have 2 op amps, each operating at a lower, more relaxed gain, so that you can get a little bit wider bandwidth, maybe a little bit less distortion than a single op amp having to provide all the gain.